Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are reacting to the president's decision.
News 8 political reporter Rick Alvin talked with Congressman Dan Kildee and joins us with more on this now.
Congressman, we've seen in the news over the past 2 weeks about the drawdown in Afghanistan, and obviously thousands and thousands of people have been evacuated, perhaps that many more still waiting to leave. This obviously has been a very rough patch in trying to make this all work out. What now should the United States be doing to try to make this process smoother?
Well, I think 100% of the focus has to be on, first of all, getting all Americans who want to leave Afghanistan, and we hope they all do, getting them out safely. I met this morning with the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence in a briefing to go through all these details. And the focus has to be entirely on getting the logistical support, the flight support, the military personnel in place. And I believe that's the case now, to secure the area around the airport and to make sure that there's no impediment for an American to leave. And then naturally, we also have to focus on those Afghan nationals who stood with us, whose lives are now at risk. And that could be tens of thousands of people. So this is a logistical challenge. This is the biggest evacuation really in decades that the United States military, U.S. government has been involved with. And obviously there have been some real problems, but we've got to get through it. And then there will be tough questions that the administration will have to continue to answer about those early days.
There's a lot going on in Washington this week, and while we could spend more time on that, I want to move on to another big issue. That's infrastructure. Over in the Senate, they finally got a bipartisan deal for one of those packages, $1.2 trillion. There's a $3.5 trillion package that's also pending that we are told Speaker Pelosi would like to deal with in the House, even though some of your Democratic colleagues may not be on board. Where are those packages, and what would you like to see the outcome be?
Well, the deal that we were able to secure today guarantees that the House will vote on the Senate-passed bipartisan infrastructure bill. And I think that's really important. You know, there are things that we can do that are bipartisan. There are some things that we want to do that just can't. So if we can take the opportunity to get this legislation passed, the commitment now, based on the rule that we are passing today, is that we'll have that vote on the bipartisan bill before September 27th. Meantime, we are going to continue to work on the Build Back Better Act, which is the so-called reconciliation bill that includes the budget priorities that principally Democrats want to see put in place. That's going to be tough to get 218 votes in the House and the 51 votes that we need in the Senate. It might not include everything that we all want, but you know, again, this is where we have to compromise. It won't be potentially as bipartisan as this infrastructure bill. It's not even clear that Republicans in the House will support even the bipartisan infrastructure bill. They're clearly not going to support the budget bill. They've made that very clear. But we're going to have to make sure that the 218 of us can all find the same place on that bill, and that 51 members of the Senate. And it's tough. It's hard to govern, and it's especially hard to govern with really slim majorities.
Yeah, and you do have a very slim, only a few votes to spare. Finally, moving on again to another subject, and this is about voting rights. I know that that is something that you have been a champion of, and there is legislation that has been pending. Is there any movement on that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there's movement today on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We're going to pass that legislation today and send it over to the Senate. Basically what it does is restores elements of the Voting Rights Act that were taken out in the 2013 Supreme Court decision. Frankly, what we've done is updated the Voting Rights Act with new knowledge, new information derived from hearings that have been held, so that the criticism of the Voting Rights Act, and that is that it was based upon old information, can be set aside. This will be an updated version of the Voting Rights Act, and essentially what it will do is ensure that any of those jurisdictions, states, counties, municipalities, that have a history of discriminatory actions against people who are just trying to cast their vote, and this is mostly discriminatory actions based on race. Those sorts of actions will cause those jurisdictions to have to get pre-clearance from the Justice Department before making any changes in their voting procedures. This has been the way since 1965 that we've prevented people in jurisdictions from doing what they used to do in the South, and that is basically ensure that no African Americans can vote. We don't want to see that happen. John Lewis lived for that. He spent his life dedicated to it. We have named this bill in his honor. And as you know, John was a friend of mine. So it's not just a matter of policy, it's actually pretty personal for me as well.
Congressman, as always, we appreciate your time.
Good to see you, Rick. Thank you.